Press the button on my shirt. Oh well, this is how it's gonna go. If you study the language of the addict, so the alcohol addict, the drug addict, the vocabulary, the language that they use, it's very, very similar. There's this thing about they're running away from something, okay? They're either turning to the alcohol or they're turning to the drug, which is something that they're running away from. So usually something that causes them pain, which makes them, run into the arms of whatever it is that they're addicted to. And the language that they use is, I need it, I need. So it's this whole thing about need, needing another drink, needing another fix. And to the people that are inside of that addiction, in that kind of hell, so to speak, that is their entire world. So as a result of that, they push everything else to the side. The addiction takes priority over everything else. So family matters, relationships, their health, hygiene, their contribution to society, all of that takes second, third, fourth place to them getting their fix. And to us onlookers, when we're overlooking that, when we're seeing all of this in action, we can see that the addiction is the very thing that's causing them all their anxiety, all their sorrow, all of their troubles, all of their problems. Okay, so, if the relationships are breaking down, and they're having health issues, so, people who tend to drink alcohol, they have liver problems. Drug abusers, they have so many other health issues. They tend to age very quickly, and then they end up in rehab, and there's a whole host of stuff that takes place. But if you speak to these people, they have a huge justification as to why they need that addiction. Okay, so in their mind, it makes complete sense. They have a complete rationalization for it. It's completely logical to them. But to us, it seems very, very irrational because we're on the outside. And when they're inside of that, they're unable to see the thread, the common thread that's causing all of their problems. Somebody who's addicted to alcohol, if they stop drinking, it'll probably solve so much for them. They'll probably stop arguing with their wife. They stop arguing with their children. They might stop any abuse that they're committing, domestic violence. They'll probably be able to keep down a job better. There's so many things that would just right themselves if they weren't addicted to the alcohol. And with drugs, that situation is even more extreme, right? With drugs, it's a lot more extreme. But the important thing in all of this is the language that they use to justify that behavior, and the fact that they can't see the common thread because they're on the inside of it. But now consider the language of somebody that works many, many hours. So especially, I want you to picture the entrepreneur who's the hustler. He's very proud of working very, very hard. He works around the clock. Somebody was telling me yesterday, he knows this really successful entrepreneur that only sleeps 2 hours a day. And to me, that was actually quite shocking. That's quite alarming to me. But this is something that people are wearing as a badge of honor. But now somebody who's hustling for that long and that hard, if you listen to their language, it's actually just like an addict. So, oh bro, I haven't even had lunch today. I've been working so hard. And that's the kind of thing somebody who's addicted to alcohol would do. They wouldn't eat because they'd be busy drinking. First thing in the morning, they have a drink, right? The drunkard, first thing he does, he has a drink in the morning. The entrepreneur, the addicted entrepreneur, the hustler, first thing he does, he gets his laptop out in the morning, or he goes straight to work, and then he worries about breakfast, and then he worries about having a shower. And the drug addict or the drunkard, they're the same thing. The hygiene takes second place. So the hustler, if you notice, these people, their marriages, their everything else in their lives always takes second place to their work. The work is their identity. The work is their everything. But if you're somebody the thing is, one drunk person can't necessarily identify another drunk person. They can't see what's going on with them. They're not outside of the picture. One drug addict isn't going to be able to notice these problems on another drug addict. You've got to be outside of that. So when you're outside of that addiction, you can see what's going on with these group of people. But when you've got the entire society that's drunk on work, then they can't see it on each other. So you have to be somebody that's not drunk by that to be able to notice it. And you'll notice this with entrepreneurs. Some entrepreneur on a Friday night, you're meeting him, and he turns up late, and then it turns out he's forgotten to pick his daughter up at the train station because he's so drunk on his work. He's not taking care of his appearance, he's not taking care of his hygiene, and he's not giving any priority to anything else because he's completely drunk on work. That is an intoxication with this world, and it's not something that's from Islam. We're not taught to be outwardly intoxicated. We're taught to be inwardly intoxicated, which means to be intoxicated with Allah. We're taught to be outwardly sober. But everywhere I go and everywhere I turn, everybody's just drunk on life. They're actually drunk on work. And it's a very sad thing. And the very people that are drunk on these things can't understand why they have so many problems in their lives. They have so many personal problems. They have so much stress. I mean, these kind of things. I mean, if you look at an alcohol addict, it's very difficult to say to somebody that's in that situation, to sit them down and really have a go at them and say, all of your problems are because of that drink. It's a very difficult conversation to have. You have to come to it, unfortunately, with a lot of empathy. They can't see it. But it's the same problem with work. It's very difficult to say to somebody that you're drunk on work, and that's the cause of all of your problems. This society has manufactured this idea of being drunk on work. Especially if you look in London, the people that work in the banks and the finance institutions, they're working all around the clock. That's just like somebody drinking all around the clock, or somebody taking drugs all around the clock. I mean, what does that do to your body? What does it do to your general health? What does it do to your mental and spiritual health? It has extreme effects upon us, and nobody's talking about this where work is concerned. In fact, it's considered taboo to speak about it. Like, it's almost as if, well, you're from another religion or you're from another planet if you talk about not working so hard. But the truly successful entrepreneurs, they have this balance. They understand when they're being intoxicated by work. And they understand that thing is going to attract calamities. I've been speaking to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, small business owners and large business owners over the last few months. And I've been noticing the same pattern over and over. There were a couple of cases just a few weeks ago, very real cases, where one brother, he'd been working really hard for the last 10 years. He was working in two businesses, and he was just working around the clock. I've got a family, I've got a house, I've got to take care of them and everything. But the money the work that he was doing and the money that he was trying to save was to get into a bigger house, to save for the future, basically. So he was so caught up in that. He just, to be able to just interact with this person was very, very difficult. To just have a conversation on a dinner table, because that person was just not present at all. To have a conversation on the phone, they're just not there. They're just completely consumed by what's intoxicating them, the work. And this person, they had a huge calamity in their business. All their inventory got stolen. And the fact of the matter is that if this person had been sat at home drinking tea every single day for the past year, and not done any work, they would have ended up in the exact same financial position that they are in right now. That's the thing with all of this. You're always going to end up in these situations. So you have to stop feeling the need, and you have to stop feeding that need. And it's a very difficult thing to do because we've been programmed to do it. We've been raised on a diet of that. So it's very difficult to let go of that need. It's something that I've been teaching myself now for the last year. It's something that was very, very difficult. And I've been through my own fair share of problems, broken back, fatigue, and so many other issues. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm able to just be a lot more present. If you want to be able to enjoy life, all that hard work that you're doing, so that you can have a brighter future, you need to be able to enjoy that future. But you can't enjoy something if you're not present, and it's really fascinating to watch this. If you're sat at a dinner table and somebody that's intoxicated by anything, music, work, anything, you watch how they just don't enjoy their food because it's not just that their mind is somewhere else, their heart is consumed by something else. It's not able to take in the beauty of that. And you'll see this on entrepreneurs. They're at a dinner table, they're trying to eat, or they're watching a movie and they just don't enjoy it. They're completely numb to it because they're consumed by something else. And I've lived a whole decade, if not more, like this myself. I think back to my late 20s and very early 30s, and they're a complete blur because I just wasn't taking any of it in. So now I'm trying to learn to live every day as it comes and just be a lot more present. And it means not worrying about work. It means not telling myself this story that I need to work in order to justify my addiction, that I'm not going to survive. I mean, Allah is our Razak. I mean, our sustenance is already written and our rizq isn't in our control. So, you know, if we worry about it, we're not really trusting in Him. And who knows? And as hard as it is for a lot of people to hear this, we could be dead tomorrow. So if you've got a roof above your head and you've got food in the fridge for tonight, then if you're dead tomorrow, you already had all the money that you needed, you know. So instead of worrying about being able to pay for your daughter's wedding or a college fund or any of those things, these things are in the future, and you don't know how the economy is going to change. You don't know how the geopolitics are going to change. You don't know what's going to happen at that point. You don't know how society trends are going to change. Maybe you know, big weddings are in right now, but in 20 years, maybe everybody realizes that maybe we just need to do small weddings. So you're working really, really hard for a future that may or may not exist. And while you're intoxicated, you're running away from something. And you've got to really ask yourself, what is it that you're running away from? What is it that is causing you to seek this fix of work? What is that? And it's a very difficult conversation we all need to have with ourselves. You know, the scariest thing for an entrepreneur is to say to him, if you go, and I do this with entrepreneurs all the time, and it's very difficult for them to hear. I say to them, just spend tomorrow doing nothing, absolutely nothing, and it's almost as if I'm asking them to commit suicide. It's very difficult for them to do that, and they can do it for about 10 minutes, and they're back to just being consumed all over again. But this hustle culture, it really needs to stop. I really have to keep saying to people, you're drunk, Habibi, go home. Assalamu alaikum.